lucky enough to learn from Rabbi Professor Larry Hoffman this week. He returned to Holy Blossom to give the second annual memorial lecture in honor of Rabbi Mark Dov Shapiro, Alav Hashalom, who served as our assistant rabbi from 1977 to 1982. Rabbi Hoffman is a masterful scholar of Jewish liturgy, a teacher of and a student of the sociology of prayer and of synagogue life in general. And we have been shaped by his many decades of leadership. In fact, all of North American Jewry and beyond, liberal Jewry everywhere, has been shaped by Rabbi Hoffman's teachings. This summer, I was invited to contribute a chapter to a festschrift that's being published to honor Rabbi Hoffman's legacy, which is still ongoing, still in the making. And that's a real honor for me. My assignment was to write a reflection on the theme of an address that Rabbi Hoffman gave many years ago about authenticity, about Jewish authenticity, and specifically about authenticity in prayer. He spoke this week about what is authentic Jewish spirituality, how to recognize it when you see it, how to recognize it when you are engaged in it, and how to pursue it. So I had a chance to study and to write in celebration of Rabbi Hoffman's countless contributions, and I'd like to share a bit of it with you tonight. There are two aspects to the adjective authentic. One has to do with having traditional origins, as in, this is an authentic document, or this is authentic Italian cuisine. The other aspect of the adjective authentic has to do with being true to one's own beliefs, one's own spirit, one's own character. The former, like the authentic Italian cuisine, requires some kind of consensus among the collective. The former, which has to do with being true to one's own beliefs, spirit, and character, well, that is up to the individual. It can be determined, authenticity can only be determined by oneself for oneself. The former, like an authentic document, has to be agreed upon by the collective, and that resembles the keva of Jewish prayer, everything that is fixed in Jewish prayer. The other kind of authenticity, the belief, the spirit, the character that is determined by the self, this represents what we call kavanah in Jewish prayer, the intention of an individual person that turns the words in the page, the keva on the page, and lifts them Godward into as true prayer. So, is the prayer constructed authentically, theologically speaking, by melody, poetry, form, and setting? All those things the collective gets to decide. We get to decide. Is the prayer delivered authentically? Is the prayer offered up with sincerity? Well, that only the individual can know. Each one of us gets to decide. Was this an authentic prayer that I just offered up? Without the authentic expression of the individual, the rituals are at risk of becoming rote, and the prayer only performative. And on the other hand, without the people's seal of authenticity, worship is at risk of being creative art at best, and I love creative arts, but it's not the same as prayer. Prayer can be artful, thanks to our musicians, for example, and our architects and our artists, but it's not the same as prayer itself. And without the people's seal of authenticity, worship, God forbid, can be idolatry. So how do you say authentic in modern Hebrew? Israelis, to my great surprise and regret, say atenti. But there is an authentic Hebrew Jewish word for authentic, and that is amiti. Emmet, truth. And where do we find this word highlighted? In the Geulah prayer. In the morning Geulah prayer, there's a long list, Emet v'yatziv, v'ahuv v'haviv, all about how the authentic devotion to God is steadfast and true and repeated, ledor vador, generation after generation. But then there's a surprise twist in the Geulah prayer, and it says something about shira chadasha, that there must be a new song. So it's this gorgeous combination between what is inherited, what we have received, what is our sacred inheritance, and how do we make it new in each and every generation? How do we make it new with each and every voice, with each and every neshama? And so even in that prayer itself, which begins with the word emet, truth and authenticity, we have this marrying and melding of what is keva and what is kavanah. So in the chapter that I've written to honor Rabbi Hoffman, I call up two different versions of a scene about the Geulah prayer as recorded in two separate places of the Talmud. And I'll share them quickly with you now. When you take them together, they come as a kind of warning against reductive prayer and expansive prayer. So, Act 1. In Masechet Yoma, the Babylonian sages reinstate Moses' prayer, where it is written in Deuteronomy, right here, Moses said, Ha'el hagadol v'had gibor v'hanorah. God is great, mighty, and awesome. And that is authentic prayer. Its place is secured in our own Amidah. We say those words, just exactly those words, as they came to us from Moses. However, it's noted that the prophet Jeremiah, who witnessed the destruction of Jerusalem's temple and all of that suffering, omitted the word norah. He omitted the word awesome from his own personal prayer. He said, the great God, mighty Adonai Tzvaot, is God's name. No mention of God's awesome power, because in his time it seemed that God was rendered powerless. Similarly, Daniel, the biblical Daniel, who saw his people enslaved in his own time, admitted the word mighty. Which one is it? Gibor. Gibor does not appear in Daniel's prayer. Instead, he said, the great and awesome God, and left it at that. And so our sages ask, how could Jeremiah and Daniel uproot an ordinance that was instituted by none other than Moses? How dare they change the words of authentic prayer that came down through the generations? Rabbi Elazar explains they did so because they knew that the Holy One, blessed be God, is truthful and hates lies. Meaning, since Jeremiah and Daniel did not personally perceive God's attributes of might and awesomeness respectively, they chose to offer up only prayers which were authentic to their own life experiences, and that is exactly as God would have wanted it. On the one hand, the rabbis seem to praise Jeremiah and Daniel for their commitment to only pray what they mean and to mean what they pray. On the other hand, in the end, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, one of the greats, stands up and gives ultimate praise to the rabbis of the Great Assembly who, quote, returned the crown of the Holy One to its former glory by reaffirming Moses' original script. And they're able to make those words ring true again in their own age. So there seems to be a hierarchy of needs in prayer. Only pray what is authentic to your experience, but even greater is to find your way to infuse the original words, the inherited words, with new meaning so that you can offer them with all sincerity. Act 2. Elsewhere in Masechet Megillah of the Babylonian Talmud, there it relates that an unnamed prayer leader came before the Aron HaKodesh, before the Holy Ark, and didn't diminish Moses' words, but expanded Moses' words. What did he say? God, the great, the mighty, and awesome, and the powerful, the strong, and the fearless. Rabbi Hanina was part of the congregation that day, and after the service, privately scolded the prayer leader for doubling the number of praises for God. He said, "Is it comparable to a man who possesses many thousands of gold dinars, yet they were praising him for owning 1,000 silver ones?" What did he mean by that? All the praises one can lavish upon the eternal God is as nothing but a few silver dinars. And so reciting a litany of praise does not in any way enhance God's glory, which is priceless. You can go on and on and on. We could pray until the morning Shema, and it wouldn't increase God's glory in any way. Therefore, we ought to stick to the script, which we have inherited from Moses. Its provenance makes it also priceless. So in this version of the story, there is another hierarchy established about prayer. More honorable than one's sincere and innovative prayer is the original. Rabbi Hanina, as the authoritative voice of the community of his time, delivers to that nameless Nebuch prayer leader a lesson in humility, as the act of prayer itself is a practice in humility. The simple reading of these two stories, these two Talmudic acts about the Geulah prayer, these twin stories teach us that less is more. And they demonstrate that authentic prayer is bottomless but not boundless. The depth of the kavanah that each one of us brings is essential, and only the individual can judge one's own devotion. However, the breadth of the keva, of what is fixed in prayer, is not infinite. We have a siddur that is bound by two covers. Over all the time and space Jewish prayer has traveled, the innovations have been expansive but not boundless. The core texts and forms are remarkably controlled and confined, considering our migrations and foreign influences. This, too, is an act of faith. This healthy tension between the authenticity of the self and the authenticity of the collective is one of the unarticulated secrets of Jewish life. And the drama is played out most gloriously in the prayer arena when we introduce ourselves to God, who is the Chacham Harazim, the knower of secrets. Shabbat Shalom.